If you cross this threshold one more time, I'll strike you from the will. Forever. Margaret's voice was so sharp that the doorbell ringing a second later felt almost like a cruel joke. Alice stood in the living room, clutching the letter that had arrived that morning. It had lain on the kitchen table beside her half-finished cup of coffee, as if waiting for its moment, and now that moment had come. She never wanted it to come to this. But her sister had started again. And this time, with a threat that stole Alice's breath, not from fear, but from pain. "You've already erased me from your life, Margaret," Alice said quietly, not looking at her sister. "Why erase me from the will too?" "Because you always take her side," Margaret shouted, her voice trembling not with anger, but with desperation. "Even now, when she's lying, when she's stealing, when she's destroying everything we built." Alice finally lifted her eyes. Before her stood the woman with whom she'd shared a crib as a child, run barefoot through wet grass, and cried beside their mother's bed the night she died. But right now, that woman looked at her like a traitor. "And are you certain she's the one lying?" Alice asked. Margaret froze. And in that silence, Alice held out the letter. "This came today. A letter from Mom's friend's attorney. They say they know the truth about the house. 30 years ago, their mother left them the house, the very one where they now stood, staring at each other with so much pain between them that even the air felt unbearable. The house on the hill, with its lake-facing terrace, tall windows, and an old kitchen that always smelled of cinnamon and memory. Their mother had died suddenly, a stroke, gone within 2 days. No time to explain. No time to say goodbye. Only a will remained. Short. Clear. The house was to be split equally between her 2 daughters. But nothing was ever that simple. After the funeral, Margaret, 3 years older, immediately took control. She lived nearby, worked as an accountant, knew how to file paperwork, deal with banks, keep everything in order. Alice lived in another state then, married, with 2 children, her life swirling like it does at 50. She trusted her sister. And then it began. First, Margaret announced the house needed renovations, a new roof, rewiring, updated plumbing. The bill came to $86,000. Alice paid half without question. Then Margaret claimed the house needed to be rented out to cover costs. Alice agreed. But a year later, she discovered the tenants had been paying rent directly into Margaret's account, and Alice had never received a single expense report. "You don't seriously expect me to prove every dollar to you, like I'm your enemy?" Margaret had said then. Alice stayed silent. Then Alice's husband died. Cancer. Fast and cruel. She returned to her hometown because she couldn't bear staying in the house where every corner reminded her of him. She asked Margaret, "Can I live in the old house? Just until I get back on my feet?" Margaret agreed, but with a condition: pay $1,200 a month, like any tenant. "You're joking," Alice said. "We're co-owners. I don't get to live here for free. Why should you?" Alice paid. And things might have continued cold, silent, but bearable, if not for Lisa. Lisa was Margaret's only daughter. Smart. Ambitious. Sharp-tongued, with an even sharper sense of injustice. As a child, she adored Aunt Alice. Alice read to her at night, knit her sweaters, took her to fairs. But as she grew older, Lisa began to resemble her mother more and more. Then one day, Lisa came to Alice and said, "Auntie, I found something in Mom's safe." "What letter is this?" Margaret asked, refusing to take it. "Jones and Parker, attorneys," Alice said. "They represented Joan and Robert Hill. Remember them?" Margaret frowned. "Of course I do. They were Mom's closest friends. Both passed away, about 10 years ago." "Yes. But before they died, they left a letter with their attorney. They asked it only be opened in the event of a family dispute concerning the house." Margaret went pale. "That's nonsense. They had no right." "They did," Alice interrupted. "They were witnesses." "Witnesses to what?" Alice took a deep breath. "Do you remember Mom saying she bought this house with her own savings?" "Yes." "And do you remember her saying she once lent Joan and Robert $150,000 to save their business?" Margaret nodded, confused. "Well," Alice said, "in this letter, they confess. They gave Mom that money. so she could buy the house. Because Grandma left everything to you. Silence hung between them, thick as fog. That's a lie, Margaret whispered. Why would they write something like that in a notarized legal letter? Because they always loved you more. Margaret burst out. You were always the golden child. You left, built a career, married the perfect man, and I stayed here, took care of her, while you lived your perfect life. I didn't know. Alice cried, tears finally breaking through. I thought the house was our shared inheritance. I thought we were partners. And you, all this time, you made me feel like I owed you. You do owe me. Margaret shot back, her voice now cold, hard. For burying Mom alone. For paying for her medicine the last 2 years. For not abandoning her like you did. I didn't abandon her. Alice clenched her fists. I came every weekend. I called every night. And then you left for your perfect world. Don't call it perfect. Alice snapped. My husband is dead. My children moved away. I have no family, no home, except this one. And if you think I'll back down, you're wrong. They stood facing each other, breathing heavily, as if after a fight. I'll see you, Margaret said. Fine, Alice replied. But know this. If you do, I'll publish this letter. And the whole town will learn how you've lied all these years. You wouldn't dare. I would. The next morning, Alice woke to a knock at the door. It was Lisa. She walked in without waiting to be invited and sank into a kitchen chair. Her eyes were red. Did you read it all? Alice asked. Yes. Lisa lowered her head. I thought you knew. I didn't. Mom told me you gave up your rights. That you don't care about family. And you believed her? Lisa was silent. I didn't know what to do, she finally said. I love Mom. But I don't want to be like her. You don't have to be like anyone, Alice said gently, sitting across from her. You're Lisa. And you get to choose whose side you're on. What if I choose the truth? Then we'll find a way to fix this. There was no trial. A week later, Margaret came to the house herself, unannounced. She stood on the porch, holding a folder of documents. I changed my mind, she said, not meeting Alice's eyes. Why? Because I'm tired. Alice didn't reply. She just let her in. They sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where their mother once baked apple pies and told them stories. I never wanted to be like this, Margaret whispered. I just felt that if I let go of control, I'd disappear. Like I'd never even existed. You always existed, Alice said. We were just both afraid of losing each other. I was afraid you'd leave again. I'm not going anywhere. A month later, they signed a new agreement. The house remained jointly owned, but with clear terms, all expenses split equally, all decisions made together, all rental income deposited into a shared account both could access. Lisa helped with the legal paperwork. She even uncovered old receipts for repairs, taxes, everything Margaret had once hidden. We can reimburse you part of it, Margaret told Alice. No, Alice said. Let's leave it in the house. Let it become whole again. Several months passed. One Sunday morning, Alice and Margaret sat on the terrace with coffee. Sunlight glittered on the lake, birds chirped, and the wind carried the scent of pines. Remember when we floated on that homemade raft out here? Margaret asked. And you fell in the water? And you pulled me out, Margaret smiled. And said, if you drown, who'll drive me crazy? Alice laughed. I still do. Yes, Margaret sighed. But now, I'm glad. They sat in silence a while longer. Forgive me, Margaret said. I already have, Alice replied. But thank you for asking. That same evening, Alice found another letter in an old dresser drawer. Not an official one. Just an envelope labeled, for my girls. She called Margaret. They opened it together. If you're reading this, you're arguing again. I know, you're different. Margaret, strong as an oak. Alice, soft as a willow. But an oak without a willow falls in a storm. And a willow without an oak bends to the ground. A home isn't the walls. It's what you build inside. Don't let resentment steal each other from yourselves. I love you both. Always. Mom. They cried. Then they hugged. And maybe, for the first time in years, truly.